Hello and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History. Signed, sealed, remembered, Will Hutchins loves Clambake. And we're still on the set of Clambake. It's April 1967. Elvis is filming Clambake. He's already recorded the songs. All he's got to do is get his part onto the film, and we've been hearing stories from people that were there, like Will Hutchins and Charlie Hodge, and we're going to hear more from them today, right after we come back from this song, which tells the story of Elvis and a telegram and a letter that he exchanged with his friend, Gary Pepper.
The lights came down on Vegas gold. July heat, a crown retold. Applause like thunder, stars align. But one true friend was not in line. A telegram, a quiet grace. From 12 years deep, a loyal face. I read your words, they calmed the flame. In all that noise, I spoke your name. I wish you could have been here, Gary. The velvet night, the roaring crowd. But in my heart, your voice was steady. A whisper soft, a faith unbowed. 4 more weeks, this fire will fade. I'll find my way back through the haze to Graceland's porch where silence sings and friendship wears no stage or wings. The suits, the gifts, the famous hands, they cheered the king, they made demands. But in the mirror doubt would stare, and only you knew what was there. I wrote you lines in trembling ink, not for the press, not for the drink, just for the man who saw me hold beyond the glitter, past the road. Say hello to everyone, I'll be home when this is done. The curtain falls, the echo fades, but you remain my serenade. 4 more weeks, this fire will fade. I'll find my way back through the hay to Graceland's porch where silence sings. Friendship wears no stage or wings.
Thank you all for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echoes. And today we're going to hear the echo of Will Hutchins, who loves Clambake. Hi, Jen. Hi, Marion. Hi, Colleen. Thank you so much for coming today. Appreciate having you here. And I see that Marion is saying that the time has changed in Europe. I think the time changes here next weekend too, so probably going to go through a couple of weekends of strange times for everyone. I'm going to continue to broadcast at what they're telling me is the same time, 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So hopefully you'll be able to align that with your time and everyone will know when I'm on. I will not be on at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. I do have to skip that one. But I should be on at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, which is this time. So I should be on 24 hours from now. Over the last few days, we've heard from a lot of people that worked on the movie Clambake. And today we're going to take a look at the first song in Clambake. Well, I don't know that it's the first song in Clambake, but the title song for Clambake. And Jen is confirming that we change time November 2nd in the States. I believe that's next weekend. And then 6 months from now, we'll do the whole thing over. So the world tries to make it difficult for us all to join together here to celebrate Elvis. But we are going to get through. And if you do miss an episode, you miss a live broadcast, you can always watch it on the replay. On screen, we can see this is the label from a record. This would have been a 78. And the title song for the movie Clambake is a rewrite of the song Shortening Bread, recorded by Henry Witter for the OK and Victor labels on February 26, 1924. And on screen, you can see the OK label, OKEH. I've never heard of that label, but I'm sure that people who collect historical records, they probably do recognize it. Victor is the label that eventually joins RCA and becomes RCA Victor. Elvis records his version of this song, Clambake, just 4 days short of 43 years later, on February 22nd, 1967. But the label on screen, that's from the 1924 record by Henry Witter. I have not myself listened to this. I'm going to try to find this and put it on the playlist for Clambake. I just didn't have a chance to go look for it. But I did read that Henry is a acquired taste, that he has somewhat of a nasal presentation, but he's also only the second or third vocalist to ever sing country and be recorded. So previously there had only been one or two people that had sang country songs. Others had been recorded playing country songs on different instruments, but nobody had recorded the vocalist. Henry was the second or third, and he was recorded without a microphone, so you would have like sang into the horn of the phonograph type machine. So they called this like a true audio recording. It was extremely analog. Even when you record with a microphone, it's often an analog recording, but in this case, it was super analog. And so they say that it's very difficult to make him out, and even when you can, that a lot of people don't like his voice. Hi, Gunn. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And everyone's talking about the good and the bad from the time change. And that's true. There's always good and there's always bad with it. Like almost everything in life. And Will Hutchins. Let's take a look. We can see Will Hutchins in this picture, the still from the movie, which I have begun to watch. I did find it. I found that it's showing for free on Tubi right now, at least in the United States. So before the broadcast is over today, I'm going to put up a link so that anyone else who wants to watch it free, and I don't know about the international countries, I don't know how Tubi works over there, but it's tubi.tv. They're showing it for free. I was watching about 20 or 30 minutes of it last night. It's great quality. So I will put that link up so that everyone can get a chance to watch the movie and we can discuss it in detail. It really, I think the performance review might really come later when it's actually released. Might be a better time to do it, but maybe we'll talk a little bit about it now because I did see a lot of interesting things just in the first 20 minutes. So we might wrap up our look at Clambake with, a short review of the movie and the different things that I see that reflected Elvis's life. But Will Hutchins said on set, Elvis was the ideal Southern gentleman, the perfect host of a wild 5-week stag party. Shortly after the wrap, Elvis and Priscilla got hitched. But before that, chaos. Now, Will has a very colorful turn of phrase, and he's a little bit difficult to understand what he's saying. He would have been a very entertaining guy to have around if he's able to come up with sentences like this off the top of his head. But he says that Elvis is the ideal Southern gentleman, and he's connecting that to him being a perfect host. But he says it's for a wild 5-week stag party. Now, a stag party is like a bachelor party. It's a party where a bunch of guys get together and they do a lot of guy things that are directly connected to their desire for women. They tend to watch what's called stag movies, which back in the day meant movies with naked women. Pornographic movies, basically. So Will is putting out the idea that this is a party of a bunch of men going wild. It would typically involve drinking. It would typically involve lewd behavior, locker room talk, and then mild, if not outright, pornography. And this kind of goes along with some of the stories that we've heard. They're throwing water balloons, they're putting pies in people's faces, they're pulling practical jokes on each other. Bill Bixby, according to Red, pulled down a woman's brassiere on set so that she was naked from the top up. We kind of surmised that might be Red. We're going to get some more information on that. It's coming up, hopefully in this episode. But there's a lot of hijinks going on. And Will talks about Elvis and Priscilla getting married later, but he doesn't mention if Priscilla is there. He says that it's shortly after the film wraps up. He knows that they got married, but he doesn't mention anything about her on set. And he's saying that before that it was chaos, meaning that there was a party going on all the time. Now, the one other really important piece of information I think that we can get out of this statement is that we've been wondering, because of statements that were made in summaries by other people and then repeated into fan sites, that maybe Elvis went back to the Circle G in March after he hit his head and had a concussion. Now, we've looked at that period, and it looks like there might have been a week when he could have gone back, but he would have been healing from the concussion at that moment. And that would have been a lot of travel back and forth. And he's a rich man, and he could have done it. But it doesn't sound like he did it because Billy Smith indicates there were 10 days spent in the bedroom. Now, Billy and Larry Geller, they place the date of the meeting where the colonel lays down the law and changes who's in charge. It's now Joe Esposito as foreman. Some sources say that Joe is now reporting directly to the colonel, which I think might be true for this short period while Elvis is incapacitated. I don't think it's true after Elvis is back up and running on the set, but I don't know that it's true at all, really. We haven't seen anybody say it. It's just somebody else wrote it into a book, but it's not said or backed up by anybody that was there. The second thing was Marty Lacker was demoted. He's now in charge of the wedding. It's a special project he's supposed to have underway. And the third thing was there wasn't to be any more talk about spiritual quest, spiritual stuff. None of the spiritual books are supposed to be around. So without any of that spiritual books and quests and stuff, Elvis is acting like it's a stag party, according to Will. But Will is saying they're there for 5 weeks. So we've also speculated that maybe, and again, because it's written elsewhere, that there are undefined dates that Elvis left during a break in production of Clambake and went back to the Circle G and then came back. It seems highly unlikely because there's already been a lot of delays in Clambake. What else could stop the production and then allow Elvis to go back to the Circle G? So it doesn't seem as if it fits the timeline. But here, Will tells us Elvis is the host of a 5-week party. They're there for 5 weeks. That's the last week of March and 4 weeks into April. So according to Will, and he's not directly addressing, did Elvis go back to the Circle G? He's just making a statement about how the filming went, and he says it was 5 weeks of fun. To me, that indicates Elvis didn't leave. So I think we've got our proof that Elvis did not make it back to the Circle G until the honeymoon, after he was married in May. Hi, Luann. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. Happy coffee. I know you're drinking a coffee. So I think Will gave us a really important clue that connects directly back to Circle G. Elvis is longing for it from the time he leaves on March 5th until the time he returns, roughly May 5th. So he's gone from that Circle G for 2 full months. He owns it a week into February, and he leaves a week into March. So he's got about 4 weeks that he's actually spent on the property. And most of those, if not all of them, but the first one, he came back to Graceland to spend the night. Now, by the time he gets back to the Circle G, he will have owned it for over 3 months. But he's only spent a month there. That's it, just 1 month so far. Now, on March 30th, and we're talking about the 5-week period that Will Hutchins is talking about, that they do the filming in, and that would be the last week of March and 4 weeks of April. During that period, March the 30th falls. And what we see on screen is a statement from a dentist from March 30th, 1967. This is Elvis's dentist in Bel Air or California. He might be Beverly Hills. I'm not sure where the dentist is, but it's right around there in the Los Angeles area. And Elvis goes to this dentist over the course of several years. But he's here on this particular day, and he has these x-rays done. And you can see the x-rays on screen. And this is really the only picture I have. And we don't really know what he had done at the dentist. I don't know if this was tooth cleaning and regular x-rays. I mean, I know when I go now to the dentist, like once a year, they want you to get x-rays. But back in 1967, they would put these, well, to tell you the truth, I don't know how they took the x-rays with the dentist in 1967. About 12 to 15 years later, when I was getting my first x-rays that I remember, which would be the really late 70s and early 80s, you sat in the dentist chair, and they did, or you might have had to go to a special chair where they had the x-ray machine set up. At my dentist, they had a newer x-ray machine, and you could sit in the chair, and they set the x-ray machine up around you, but it took like 10 minutes. And then they put this huge, giant, very heavy, lead-filled vest that covered almost your entire body. They would drape it over you. And then the person that was going to take the x-rays, they left the room. And they clicked the x-rays from somewhere else. And then they came back and they would change some settings. And they'd leave again and they'd click the more x-rays until they got what they felt was enough to see your mouth. And the reason they did that was there was this giant fear about the radiation from the x-rays and what it would do to you. And they were trying to limit exposure, and they were very concerned about the technicians. But now when I go to get an x-ray, they swing it down from the ceiling, and they shove it up against your face, and they're clicking away right there, and the pictures are coming up on the computer screen right in front of you. That's far different from how it used to be. So I don't know how it was when Elvis got it done, but I think it would have been more like lead vest and people went out of the room and there was a lot of safety precautions. And Charlie Hodge, he talks about his part in Clambake. And I watched his part last night, and Charlie is like really good. And this is one of the reasons I've kind of been putting off watching the movie, is that we're finding out so much stuff together about it. And if I had watched it previously, I'm not sure I would have even noticed that Charlie was the barber. Because the guy who plays the father, whose name is James Gregory, he plays Elvis's father in the film. He's a famous character actor that I really like anyway. I wouldn't be able to name him as James Gregory. I happen to know that because I saw it written somewhere when I was reading about the movie, but he's a really good character actor, and he's like completely stealing the scene anyway, and it is his scene. But Charlie is doing some wonderful business with the razor and the expressions on his face, and like he just sells the whole thing. It's beautiful. And I never realized Charlie was that good an actor. But he's definitely reacting in the moment, and he's just helping that whole scene. So if you know the scene I'm talking about, let's hear it from Charlie, and then you guys can chime in if you know that scene or if you remember it. Charlie says, I cut Elvis's father's hair in Clambake, and he wouldn't sit still for me to do it. It's a funny scene. James Gregory played Elvis's father in the film. Most of the boys got to appear in one or two of the films. There's actually multiple of the boys in this film, but that part that Charlie got to do, it was a great part. And Will Hutchins says, I had the honor of singing a duet with Elvis. Who needs money? Actually, I lip-synced to the voice of a Jordanaire. He didn't much sound like me, and you'd figure they'd at least get someone who could sing on key. Who Needs Money is still my favorite Clambake moment. In the last episode, Terry from Elvis History was with us, and he told us that Will did not sing the part, that a Jordanaire had sang it. But what's interesting is that Will is stating that the Jordanaire didn't sound like him, which doesn't surprise me for the time period. I wouldn't have really expected the singer to sound like the person on screen. That was a rare thing when they did that. You were lucky just to get somebody's singing voice to match up to somebody else's lips. But he also says he thought they'd at least get someone who could sing on key. Well, these Jordanaires were extraordinary singers. So I don't know if that's a joke coming from Will, and he's just kidding about the guy not being on key, or if he truly thought that the Jordanaire did not sing the part that well. Because Will is tongue-in-cheek on everything he's saying that we're looking at. So I just can't tell whether that's a joke or whether he meant it. But it might also be a play on the idea that he doesn't really understand music. He's not a singer, so he doesn't really sing and can't sing, and he's maybe poking fun at himself that to him this wonderful singer sounded like he was off key. I don't know. I think it's somewhere in there, but I just don't know. And Luann says that she still loves Clambake, and now that she's older, she sees why. So what a job Elvis had on his hands, and how well he did to squeeze so much stuff out of a certain amount of time, and that she just hadn't thought about that as a kid. Yeah, he was living life at 200 miles an hour all the time. He never slowed down. And just a tremendous amount of stuff getting done. And this is the picture that we ended off on yesterday, and I forgot to point out that Red West is in this picture. He played an ice cream salesman. Had like a little bicycle with an ice cream cooler on it. So he was the ice cream man in Clambake. And you can see Elvis singing here, and I'm not really sure what this giant contraption that they're on is. It kind of has pieces that look like an airboat, but it's obviously not an airboat. There were a lot of, in the first 20 minutes of the movie, I noticed a lot of scenes of airboats and that beautiful red, I believe it's a Corvette that Elvis drives at the beginning of the movie. There's obviously a stunt guy driving it in those long shots, and you can see the airboats running next to it. And those are all shot in Florida. I lived in Florida for many years, over 20 years. Well, 10 years. Gotta take that back. I guess it was just over a decade. But no, it's closer to 20. That is Florida. They did film that in Florida. And there's a lot of areas in Florida that still look like that. So you could still see the Everglades and the boats like that. And you could go out on those boats and you could see alligators and all kinds of snakes and wildlife of all kinds. But Elvis never went to Florida for this movie. So all the shots of Florida, they're B-roll and they were stuck in. And it's very clear to me, even from a long shot, that the guy that's driving the car isn't Elvis. So that's poor production to me. When you're doing a long shot, you can't pull off that the guy is supposed to be Elvis. That's poor production. And I also thought that the quality of the film that they used for the B-roll was not as high quality, or it didn't come out in production as well as the stuff they did on set. So it's jarring. And Gunn says she enjoyed Clambake very much. A nice, funny story. It is a beautiful little story. But I can see the pieces of it that Elvis is, maybe upset with. The things that he would like to see improved on later productions, which we're going to talk about right this moment. And Gunn, I think you especially will like this. This is a page that is dated 4/12/1967, so that's right in the middle of this filming Clambake period. The page is titled Pot Luck. Okay, now Pot Luck is an Elvis album that came out in 1962, I think. So it was 5 years before this production. It has nothing to do with Clambake. But when you read through the rest of the sheet has nothing to do with Pot Luck. So I believe that Pot Luck is a working title, not for Clambake, but for the next movie that they're going to do, for Speedway. Because when you read through the other items that are here, they all apply to Speedway. And so this has 3 columns, and it says order of appearance in the script, page location in the script, and song and performers. This is listing out for Speedway what songs will be in that film and where in the film they're going to appear. There is a script already for Speedway because they're referencing exact pages. Now, they don't actually have the pages in here except for one, which indicates to me that the script is not actually written yet. That they have a formula for how they put these movies together. And Colonel Tom is probably connected to this particular formula because he's going to need these songs to be in production immediately so they can make it to the soundtrack. So there's probably a streamlined process for communicating the songs and how they're going to be. And so they're going to get all these songs together and then they're going to fit them into the script. And they probably have ideas about what they're going to do with the script, but they don't have it written to the point they can put the page in here yet. But they do know what order they want them to appear. And that's going to tell Colonel Tom how many total songs are going to be in the movie. So this is what you're seeing here is a piece of the production of how we get from absolutely nothing to an entire complete Elvis Presley film. And how do those songs make it into the movie? Now, the songs, they're not necessarily written either. There's a title to the song, and there's a performer. And it's possible that the titles and who's going to sing it are being fed to the songwriter, as well as the script writers. So the script writers are going to fit the songs in, and the songwriters are going to make the songs fit the script. Or they're going to write a song about what they think the script's going to be about, and then the script writers are going to fit the script to the song. It's going to work out somehow like that. But this allows all 3 teams, the production, plus the songwriters, plus the script writers, to all communicate. And they're all up to date every moment. And as of 4/12 for the next movie, this is where they're at. And Luann says that Clambake lit up her face, and Gunn says to remember that movie is almost 60 years old. And that she lived outside the USA and didn't know how Florida looked in reality. So to her, you know, and that's a good point, to a lot of people, it looked just fine. They would never have noticed it, especially in the 1960s. And Luann says, I see now why Elvis wanted a serious acting. He had only done serious acting as a Western on horses. He had done King Creole, which was close, but I see what you're saying. A lot of his serious stuff, it was done in the Westerns. And we can also see on this page that there is writing that is in blue ink. Supposedly, that is Elvis's writing. They sold this page at auction, and they sold it as that being Elvis's writing. So we talked about Elvis having a blow up at the beginning of the Clambake production when he got there in March 6th, March 7th, March 8th, one of those dates. They came to the house, the executives and the colonel, because Elvis was very angry. He was very angry about the script. Now, that's the story that we heard, and we assume it's the script for Clambake, and we feel like, well, he just got the script for Clambake when he got there. Now he's reading it, and it's terrible. I think it's possible it was the script for this next movie. Now, maybe not, because they're not referencing real pages here. So it seems like the script's not completely written, or not enough for them to reference on this page. But maybe there was enough of the script done, a story treatment, that Elvis saw in early March. There's also a belief that Speedway was started prior to, there was a deal made for it prior to Clambake. But then something happened and it got pushed off until after Clambake. I think that's possible too. So maybe there was a script in some form. And that's what Elvis was angry about. Because, of course, we don't know what went on at the meeting. But there's speculation that Elvis never worked on any of the scripts. He didn't have anything to do with them. That's what that's part of the myth. And that grows out of Colonel Tom famously saying that Tom himself, Colonel Parker, did not read the scripts. He said that wasn't part of his job. That was the creative side. In other words, he made the deals to do the movies, but the movie creativity part, anything that had to do with the way things looked on screen, or the script itself, or the way they filmed it, that's all up between Elvis and those people that are doing it. That's what Colonel Tom's saying. Now, in reality, Colonel Tom did apply pressure in all of those areas, but mostly he stayed away from it. But mostly Elvis didn't really mess with it either, according to what we know. But here we can see that if this is Elvis's writing, which to me, I don't know that this looks like Elvis's writing. I guess it could be. It's kind of neat for Elvis's writing. But let's assume that it is, because that's what it was sold as, and somebody paid a lot of money believing that it was. And maybe they verified this somehow, but let's assume that Elvis wrote on this particular page on 4/12/1967, and then it sent it back down through whatever communication channel they had for this. Well, that means he was involved. he was involved months before they began actual filming on this movie. And that indicates he was probably involved on Clambake several months before we're actually here at filming. Don't know for sure. Just looking at this page with you that I found. And you guys can look at it and determine what information you think it can tell us. But I think it's telling us Elvis had more involvement in the creative side than we thought he did. And that he had the ability to be as absolutely involved as he wanted to. Hi, Regina. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. Now, Charlie Hodge, he's got more to tell us. He says that Elvis loved making pictures. And even though he got tired of it towards the end of it, it was usually a fun time on set. Some of the directors didn't like how we played up, but most realized it helped us let off steam and the frustrations of a boring day. And it was Elvis who would usually start it all. He was a real practical joker. It was his way of unwinding from the boredom and the pressure. Charlie's talking about all these hijinks that are going on, what Will was referring to as a stag party. Charlie's saying that they did have a lot of fun, but that it was all good, clean fun. They were just unwinding from boredom and pressure, that they were letting off steam. And normally it was Elvis that started the hijinks. On screen, we can see Elvis in a shot from the movie. He's holding a guitar. In this shot from the movie, we can see the actual clam bake. Now, I'm not sure what the cook is baking at the bottom of the screen. I don't know if those are clams or, I mean, I would assume they have to be, but they are gigantic if they are. I thought maybe they could be potatoes or something, but I don't know. There are chickens on a rotisserie above it. They might be potatoes. I don't know. You guys tell me, what is the cook cooking at the bottom of this picture? Now you can also see Elvis. He's dancing a little bit of a jig here. There is a band that is playing for him. Looks like a rock and roll band. And the lead guitarist appears to be a female with long blonde hair. And this is a movie on the beach, or a party on the beach. A lot of sand. And everybody looks like they're having a lot of fun. Except for that lead guitarist. She has a very sour look on her face. And Marion's saying that she thinks Elvis wrote some notes about how he wants to act in that scene, but the time to observe the page was too short. What he wrote, I didn't read any of it. He just noted the songs, and he was noting like where he was noting other song names or where he thought the song should go in the movie. So we can go back here. Let's take a look. So like the first note, it's typed as title song, A Driving Man. But then the note says The Road to Success. And the next note says, well, typed, it says song in the Hangout, Elvis and Others Dance. And the notes here are very small and I have trouble reading them, but one says, number 1, The New Breed, which I believe is the name of another song. And it says number 2, something in a panda or parada or something. I can't tell it. Teeny Boppers in Parade, I think. Teeny Boppers in Parade. And number 3 is I'm Honey in Bath. And so that's one of the reasons I don't think that Elvis wrote these notes. I think these are the notes of maybe one of the songwriters. That he's looking at the songs that are supposed to be here, or maybe one of the script writers, and they're saying, well, how about these for song title names? And it's like that all the way down the left-hand side. There are other lists of other, what I believe are song names. And then the notes that are on the right side are yet more what appear to be song names. But there's no real descriptions of anything that's going on in the movie. So it does, and then there's a bunch of numbers that are circled, and the numbers themselves, none of that feels like Elvis to me. He was not a guy that wrote lists with numbers on it. So I think whoever bought this, I don't think it's Elvis. And so I don't know that we could even say that Elvis was involved at this point. If this is Elvis writing on the script, he was definitely involved long before most of us thought he was. But if this is just an internal note that's going back and forth between the writers, then somebody, well, they paid a lot more for it than they should have on the auction network. And Luann's asking, what time is it now? That it's 6:44, where she is, and that was a couple of minutes ago, but it's 3:47 in the afternoon right now. But we're going to change time next weekend here in America, and that's probably going to mess us all up again. We will fall back in America, but I have no idea what that means for you. It's too much time changes. My head can't deal with it. And Jen is saying that Barbara Eden was in Flaming Star and Barbara Stanwyck was in Roustabout. And that is true. And Gunn's saying that when you watch these movies, you have to watch them for the fun of it. Just amusement with Elvis. I agree. If you go into it looking for a serious movie, then you will be disappointed in most cases. It's family entertainment. It's the kind of entertainment that Disney used to put out in the same time period. Good, wholesome family entertainment. And Luann's saying she thought Barbara was in some kind of Western movie. That's because Barbara was famous on TV for being in The Big Valley, which was a Western. And in Roustabout, I think she even wore a cowboy hat once or twice. I can't remember for sure. But most people, when they think of Barbara, they immediately think of The Big Valley. And so they think, hey, this is a Western. And Luann's telling me they call it daylight savings time over there in Australia. That's what we call it too. I just call it a mess. But most people call it daylight savings time. Now, Will Hutchins says, he talks about all the fun activity that's going on the set, the stag party, what Charlie is describing as letting off steam, practical joking. Will says, when the decibel level got deafening, Elvis would cry, "Help us out!" And all would be quiet for the nonce. That was our catchphrase. Help us out. And help us out is help us out, but it's pronounced the way that Vernon Presley would say it with his southern accent. Help us out. And so Elvis is using a cry that mimics his Memphis and southern background, probably pokes a little bit of fun at it. And when it gets too loud, they all yell out, "Help us out." And there are these phrases that these guys have, Elvis in the inner circle, and they move among these phrases over the years. So at one point, they're calling everybody my boy. My boy, my boy, my boy. They called each other my boy. They called everybody else in the world my boy. They got into a point where they're calling everybody boss for a while. Especially Elvis, they're calling boss. They had some other ones that they went through, but at this point in time, Will's saying they're using help us out. Here we can see a picture of Elvis and Will. And I got who swapped the suits wrong yesterday. Elvis was wearing this suit that looks like a baseball. To me, it looks like a baseball, right? It's got the pattern of stitching of a baseball, like imprinted on it. I don't know why. I don't find that to be an attractive suit, but he switches it with Will Hutchins' character. And Will Hutchins' character is a poor character. And now he's wearing this very expensive suit. Yet when I look at this suit, I would not look at this and say, this is an expensive suit. It feels more like something the Colonel would wear. So I find that amusing, and I'm not sure how they chose. It doesn't seem to have been explained in the movie why he's wearing a suit that looks like a baseball. And Jen says that she always thought that too. And Charlie Hodge says, when we got a little bored with making clambake, or he says, when Elvis got a little bored with making clambake, I walked out on the set one morning. It was the original Phantom of the Opera movie set. A bucket of water hit me from way up on one of those high catwalks. Charlie tells us an amusing story where he gets soaked. And this is where the name of yesterday's episode came from, Charlie, Wet and Wild. But we didn't make it far enough into the episode to get to this story. And so it's an amusing story of Charlie being wet. But he tells us this amazing fact that they're on the movie set of the Phantom of the Opera. So he's connected this Clambake production to a very famous and what would have been seen at the time as a high quality production of Phantom of the Opera, which I believe was, I think Charlie's referring to the 1920s and Lon Chaney. And Lon Chaney was the father of Lon Chaney Jr. Lon Chaney was known as the man of 1,000 faces with a makeup kit. He could change his face to look like 1,000 different people. And he taught all of those skills to Lon Chaney Jr. And you probably remember Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman from Universal Pictures. There was Bela Lugosi as Dracula, Boris Karloff as the Frankenstein monster, and Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman. But the Phantom of the Opera was his father. And if you ever saw pictures of the makeup case that Lon Chaney created, he used a standard Hollywood makeup case. But when you see that case, you realize that is the black box that Elvis has people carrying around in the 60s and 70s that has his wallet and his Bible and some of his medications and a lot of other personal items that he has carried in this box that he uses kind of like a purse. And Riley, she showed that box on Oprah Winfrey's show, and she pulled the Bible out of it and showed everybody, and the wallet. Elvis would have kept his cash inside this box. It wasn't Lon Chaney's box, but it was a box exactly like Lon Chaney would have used, because it's this Hollywood makeup box. And so Elvis is connected into this long history of Hollywood now. And Luann says that's something that she never heard of. The Phantom of the Opera set, or Lon Chaney and Lon Chaney Jr., or Lon Chaney's makeup kit. Which one, Luann? But at any rate, that brings us to the end of this hour. Another episode. Each hour, its very own self-contained documentary about Elvis. So be sure you tell everybody you love that loves Elvis to come check out these documentaries. And I'm going to leave you all with a song. And this one's going to be House on Wheels, about the trailers that Elvis is trying to get back to on the Circle G, but he's not going to make it until his honeymoon in May. And until then, you all keep on taking care of business.
He rode past Green Acres with a glimmer in his eye. Said, wouldn't it be something if my folks could live nearby? 12 trailers later, they were rolling down the lane. Concrete dreams and carpet floors, love poured out like rain. He bought one for Grandma, parked it close to his own. Said, you've got 2 homes now, no need to be alone. One for his daddy, one for his boys. He built a little kingdom, not just for show but joy. They called it trailer trash, he called it home. A place for the weary, the lost and alone. He fought through the permits, the neighbors, the noise, just to give peace to his mama and joy to his boys. It wasn't steel and wheels, it was a love made bold. A house on wheels with a heart of gold. The county said no, the neighbors raised Cain, but Bernie worked midnight through thunder and rain. They poured the pads, ran the lines, made it right, while Elvis rode a rising sun at first morning light. Some said he was foolish, some said he was grand, but he just wanted laughter to echo through the land. He sat on the floor near tears in his eyes, said, why do they fight me when I'm trying to rise? They called it trailer trash, he called it home. A place for the weary, the lost and alone. He fought through the permits, the neighbors, the noise, just to give peace to his mama and joy to his boys. It wasn't steel and wheels, it was love made bold. The house on wheels with a heart of gold. place for the weary, the lost, and alone. He fought through the permits, the neighbors, the noise, just to get keys to his mama and joy to his boys. It wasn't steel and wheels, it was love made bold, a house on wheels with a heart of gold.
Marion reminded me that I forgot to put into the chat the free link to the free Clambake on Tubi, at least in the United States. So I have posted that link in the chat. Be sure that if you want to see Clambake for free, you try the link. If you live outside the United States, it may not work, but here in the US, I know that it does. And until I see you guys all again, thank you, Marion, and keep on taking care of business.